There we go. And right, my name is Alan Kennedy, and I'm just going to talk to you today about what I would call the perfect sales pitch. Just a bit of background about me. I'm a retired chartered accountant. I ceased my membership to the Institute of Chartered Accountants last year, so it gave me more freedom to build a coaching and mentoring practice. I've built a number of businesses along the way, mainly as a result of my sales activity. Sometimes it's been really easy, sometimes it's been really tough, but you learn more in the tough times than you do in the easy times. I just want to give a bit of a shout out to some of the people who've helped me along the way, particularly Robin Waite and Chris Gardner, two business coaches I've used. They're both in their own way really excellent, so thank you guys. And also to all the people who have been clients of mine. To those I've helped, thank you, and to those I haven't helped, I'm sorry. Okay, so let's go straight in then to a deep dive on a perfect sales pitch. However, we're not going to go straight into a deep dive on the perfect sales pitch. There's actually nothing worse than being sold to, okay? Particularly when you don't want to buy what someone's selling. You've all been rung up by people from selling double glazing, I doubt, and we then had to register with a telephone preference service, or by people who've knocked on your doorstep with a product you don't really want. So much better is that before you get to sell, you market. And this concept was probably encapsulated by a guy called Guy Vaynerchuk, who read a book called Jab, 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 Right Hook. And I think that's a lovely description of how selling should work. You've got to market first. You've got to build that know, like, and trust. Whether you do that by networking, whether you do it by existing client referral, but somewhere along the way, build know, like, and trust. And how do you do that? Well, tell stories about the problem you solved. The more stories you can tell, the better it is. The more you make a difference to people's lives, the better it is. And just so people get an idea, because then what they'll do is they'll think, I've got that problem. Perhaps they can solve it for me. You can write books about the problems you solve. You can record videos in today's. You can do 60-second presentations. There's just a myriad of ways you can tell stories. But tell stories. If you're new in startup business, tell stories about the problems you could solve. But whatever you do, tell stories. When I was first starting up, I used to say, let's imagine this situation. And then I was in a story. So let's presuppose that someone's heard your stories and they come to you and you do your first sales pitch. How do you start? Well, we always start with not, would you believe, the sales pitch. Before anyone comes to speak to us, we send out a diagnostic questionnaire because we want to know a bit about them. Sorry, I'll just put this on the slide show. That's probably better. Why? There is absolutely no reason why we should follow the traditional approach to selling, which was something like, if I phone up 3 people, I'll get a shed load of free advice. I remember the record I was ever asked to by a line manager of mine was to phone 7 people to get as much free advice on an issue as we possibly could. Well, partly I just think that's immoral to waste people's time like that. But also, if you're selling to people, you don't have to go through the same process. So I always send out a diagnostic questionnaire because I don't want to sell to people who I can't help. And so I get the diagnostic questionnaire back. And sometimes I'll ask people on a scale of 1 to 10, how much have you got a process that works for getting sales on board? And sometimes I get back 8 or 9 on that. So I'll send an email back and say, are you sure I can help you? Because I tend to only help people who haven't got a process for getting their sales on board. Or sometimes I get similar comments from people who are not stressed. And I go back and say, I think that you should be teaching me, not you, me and you. But it varies from person to person, and there might be different factors involved. So send out a diagnostic questionnaire. Typical questions that I use is on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you? Are you hanging on by your fingertips, or is it on time every time? So having done that, and you've got the answers back, and you think, well, this is the person I could help. Then you move on to actually have a meeting with them. Send them a diary link, and then at the beginning of the meeting, deal with pleasantries. And in the pleasantries, you're looking to basically aim for empathy. You're looking to build up trust. So if they play golf, ask them questions about their golf. Even if you don't play golf, show interest in them and particularly their business. People are very good at talking, so get them to talk about the business, get them to tell them things, and then move on. And probably I'd set the agenda now as to what the agenda is. So my typical agenda is something like, tell me about where you're at. Let's see what your problems are. I'll tell you whether I can solve them. And if you think I can solve them, then we'll move on to talking about price. How does that sound? And they'll say, yes, that's good, or no, it's not. So let's do to step one of the agenda, which is tell me about where you are. And our role as service providers is to take people from Hell Island to Heaven Island. The more we can do that, the more valuable we become. The more valuable we become, the more we were worth to people, and the more we can charge. So the first thing I want you to do is a deep dive into Hell Island. You want to find out what it's like for them. What are the main issues? And if they say something like, I'm always busy, it might not be that they're always busy. It might be that their clients are rubbish and they have to change their client base. Or it might be they're bad at delegating. Or it might be that they're not charging enough, so they're ending up working very hard just to survive. Could be all of those sorts of things, all of them the mistakes I've made in the past. But just try and find out what they are. Ask open questions about the problem. How does that feel? What would the impact be if you could solve that problem? What difference would it make to your life? And then sometimes repeat the question a bit. Is that really the difference? So it might be something like, I'd have more money in the bank. Okay, well, what difference would that make to you? Well, it'd mean I could go on holiday. It'd mean I could have a bigger house. And what difference would having a bigger house? Well, it would improve the quality of my family life. So let's get straight about this. You want to solve your business problem so you can have a better family life. Yes. Because when business gets tough, you need to make sure you don't lose track of where you're going to. And that's step 3, is to talk about Heaven Island, what Heaven Island looks like, where they're trying to get to, what does good look like? That's it. So I often ask them questions like, exactly that, what does good look like? And get them to describe what's stopping them from getting to good. Okay, so that's step 3. So you know what the problem is, Hell Island. You know what the solution is, and what the solution looks like in Heaven Island. And then you move on to stage 4 of the process, which is to convince them that you have a boat that can sail from Hell Island to Heaven Island. Now, the more specialized you are, the less likely that other people are to have a similar boat. So that's one reason why specialism is good. But sometimes you'll be competing against other people who also say they have a boat. But unless you can sail them from Hell Island to Heaven Island, there's really not a lot of point in actually having a conversation about price. So how do you do that? Well, I've already taught you. Tell stories. Well, we have people who do that. You can talk to people who we've done that for. If you look on our website, we've got client testimonials. I've done that for hundreds of people. Those are the sort of things that people said to me before I bought to them, and I believe them. And generally, they've turned out to be true. It's very rare that people will tell stories about people they helped, and it doesn't apply to you. That's not always true, but just in the accounting profession, generally people are honest. So tell them the stories about how you help them. You notice thus far, I haven't come up with anything technical. The role of this sales pitch is not to impress people with your technical knowledge. It's to build trust. And part of that trust is building is talking technical knowledge, but probably only about 20%. A lot of the technical stuff has gone on before. I've posted today in a forum. I'd spoken to a client. The client said, I'm seeing my accountant because I'm getting near the VAT threshold. And I said, oh, I hope you aren't over the VAT threshold because you could have incorporated. And started the clock ticking again. The client didn't know this. Some accountants don't know this. So the more specialist you are, the better it is. But the point is that technical stuff went on before they got anywhere near me. Okay, so actually, for the avoidance of doubt, I wasn't trying to set myself up as an accountant. I was just trying to be helpful to the client and told them to take advice. Okay, so let's presuppose that you think that they think they have a boat. What do you do then? or you shut up. Okay, I could use some fairly vernacular language. In fact, some of my coaches have, but you just have to be quiet. Okay, let's have a practice. Okay, I waited for 8 seconds. That's usually long enough, because then you'll find out what the client is really thinking. If they really want to buy from you, it will be like, where do we go from here? Or it might be, tell me a bit more. Or they might say, I'm a bit worried about X, or they might say, I'm a bit worried about Y. But that silence will help them to start to formulate in their own mind what they actually want. And you remember I said at the outset that our role is to help people take informed decisions. Quietness is a very good tool in helping that. I often ask a question like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely do you think I can get you to Heaven Island? And if they say 7 or 8, then I say, what do I need to do to get you to 9 or 10? I don't move on to pricing if they say anything below 9 or 10. Why? Because if I can't solve their problem, and more particularly if they don't think I can solve their problem, there's no point about having a discussion about price. So let's say they say something like, well, I just don't know your background or something like that. So what could I do to help you understand my background? Would you like to speak to previous clients? Would you like to have a look at my website? Would you like to hear me talk a bit more about the problems I've solved, for example? And then you quiet again, and they would tell you what they want to know. Okay. So let's presuppose you get to 9 or 10, and then you go on to the price. And here you need to be short and succinct. And it's something like, it's not actually price, it's about value. And what we're trying to do is to say something like, the investment in your business to get you from Hell Island to Heaven Island is X. Let's say £3,000, or £5,000, or £15,000, or £1 million. Doesn't matter on the price. What it matters is, or 10 million. Actually, the biggest one I heard was 10 million. I'll tell you about the 10 million one later. So you say, to get you from Hell Island to Heaven Island, and always, always, always focus on the results, not on the price. The cost will be X. And then what do? You shut up. You be quiet. Okay, let's have another practice. And you wait for at least 8 seconds. And the client will usually say something like, that's expensive. Why? Because everyone who's ever bought anything has always been taught that when someone tells you the price, you go, that's expensive. And suddenly, for less confident salesmen, you see the price plummet. And I've done that. I'll say, when they say, that's expensive, I say, but for you, because you're a client I like and all that sort of stuff, I'll do it for X. And the price has just gone down. No. You need to decide before you go in what your price is going to be, and you can stick to it. So you say to them, how do you mean, or how do you mean, that's expensive? And throw it back on them and let them talk. And they'll tell you, well, it's because of the person down the road, it's the guy in the pub. And then go back to the results. So if a guy in the pub able to get you from Hell Island to Heaven Island, and has he got my experience? And is he a specialist like me? And all of those factors, to ask them to justify their decision that you're too expensive. And if they say, well, he's providing exactly the same as you, but he's cheaper, then you can say one of two things. You can say, all right, go to him. But if it doesn't work out, and one of the reasons I charge the price I do is because, and in another slide, we have 7 reasons how to justify a high price. So things like, I need to pay good staff, I need to make sure work's done promptly. Could be a whole myriad of reasons, I'm sure you can think of them. But the reasons why you should charge a high price, because I've charged low prices and I've given awful service when I did. And I've charged high prices and I've given good service. And the moral of the story is that they remember the bad service long after they remember the low price. So when they say that's expensive, it could be relative to what I've owned previously. Well, that's fine. That's why you're on Hell Island. Or it could be relative to what I was expecting. Why were you expecting what you were expecting? I've asked round about 500 firms of accountants what they charge for solo accounts. And the price varies from somewhere between 500 and 5,000. I've asked around about 300 clients what they expect to pay for solo accounts. And the price varies from 350 to 4,000. It's often about expectation, but the key is, can you get them to have an island, and is it value? So let's presuppose they agree the price. Then your next thing you have to do is tell them, sorry, I covered be quiet, haven't I? Is deal with pricing objections. Well, we've dealt with one or two of those. And then you move on to other objections. I need to think about it. And that's quite a common thing. What they mean is I need to go and ask 3 other people. I need to go and bounce ideas off people. I need to get 2 other quotes. They don't actually mean they need to think about it. It means they're unsure. And it's very rare you will dislodge them from that need to think about it scenario, and probably don't try too hard, maybe a little bit. But you might throw it back to the client a bit and say, how do you mean? What do you need to think about? Is there anything in particular? And there have been occasions when I thought, stuff it, I'm going to go for the close now. But I don't often do it, but sometimes I just think, no, this person deserves the privilege of being my client, and therefore we need to bring this conversation to a conclusion. So the most common response is I need to talk to about with my spouse, my partner, my dog, something like that, about your price. And then you can ask an open question, or just out of interest, what would you say if your partner says no? See what response they get, because they're grown-up businessmen and they should be man enough or woman enough to know that they're making a good decision. So what is it they need from their spouse and their partner? You could soften it slightly by saying, I don't want to get involved in a marital dispute, but that's the issue. And what it often is people just need reassurance that they made a good decision. I went and spoke to my wife once because I made a number of mistakes in spending money. And the consultant said to me, Alan, you're not going to speak to your wife because you need reassurance. You need speaking to her because you need forgiveness. See, there's all sorts of different reasons. So let's suppose you get through step 10. What I didn't say is, if they say that, book another meeting. Okay, so with this doesn't go on forever and I don't plague you with 10 million follow-up phone calls. Book another meeting. And then they'll come back and they'll tell you the feedback. Very often, if you book the meeting, you'll get a response. If they don't answer, when do you give up on them? Well, never. Not until they tell you in words that you understand, go away. You keep on following up. Once a week, once every 4 weeks, once every 3 months. And I remember one of my best clients I ever took on was someone who said to me when I came back a year later, you are living proof that persistence pays. People like to be chased. Why? Because it makes them feel loved. Okay, let's move on. So if you want to know more about how to sell well and you're an accountant or a service provider, such as a solicitor, an HR provider, or an IT professional, please do contact me to book a free session. I usually, once you fill in your diagnostic questionnaire, if I think I can help you get from Hell Island to Heaven Island, then that's what I'll do. So thank you very much for listening. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, show you a nice picture of Shipton under Witchwood. I'm going to stop recording.